All right, so I guess I'll combine my monologue with the story, but I'll try to put a timestamp so that you guys know when to start, so that you just get the story if that's what you want. But it always helps me to kind of like just ramble for a little while, just to warm up. I know I say this shit all the time. I'm very repetitive, but today was not like the best day. Not the worst day either, because I'm coming out of my depression. I was getting really depressed there for a little bit. I don't know what happened. I don't know. I'm not really sure what happened. I think a lot of it had to do with the prison series. We've talked about that. So I'm just kind of like, instead of just not just being like, fuck it, I'm not going to do anything. I just kind of have been on this series just to like kind of bounce back. And I'm not reading the comments, but I don't know. So I'm not sure if you guys even like this series or not. But I mean, I guess I just started trying to finish the Paul thing, and it just kind of like, turned into whatever the fuck it is. But it's content, so we'll just keep going with it, and then we'll get to the storylines. I'm just kind of like coming back. But today, the reason today wasn't very good is, first of all, my sleep schedule's just been incredibly fucked up. Usually the time that I work is at night. I start working around like 10 o'clock as far as like writing videos, that kind of work. The days is all phone stuff. And it's like, usually it's just like, well, how can we juggle this contractual shit? How can we make this work? Or whatever the case is. But usually it's like legal stuff associated with the documentary. That's like the most time-consuming thing I have going on right now. So today, I get an email from the guy that had like edited or like done the sound mixing for Drug Stories for Truckers, which to you guys is like old news. It's like months ago. But I did want to put it on like the bigger platforms because I do have another album that I've been working on this whole time, and I'm thinking about putting it out pretty soon, and this guy had contacted me. He's like, hey, they're not going to accept Drug Stories for Truckers because they think that the celebrity parts of it at the end are not my original content. They're like, I don't know who Ryan Leone is. They probably are sitting in their office calling me Leone. They're like, this guy doesn't like have access to these people that are doing guest appearances on a shitty like bootleg album that he made at home. I didn't make it all at home though. I did use recording studios and stuff, but I was on a sick one when I was trying to record that. It was crazy. Like every day that I had to do like the basic story part of it, and I'd sit down at the computer and I have my microphone. I was strung out at the time, so I would just like I would tell Creative every day, today I'm going to record the album. It just became like this kind of inside joke because I never got it done. Eventually I did finish it and I put it out on the bootleg, version that a lot of people bought. I made good money off. That was like a survival period for me where I was like, had to think of ways to try to keep it going. And I don't know why, but I just never really got around to putting it on the platforms. It was like one thing after the other why I didn't. But anyway, I got to it, and now they're saying that there's like copyright infringements or something because I don't have the rights to my guests, but I do, because that's like original content for me. They're saying that I sampled that from television. They're saying they're saying my fucking name. Are they not? They're saying like that's weird. So there's that. The second thing is Anti-Heroes, which should have been out a long time ago. And basically, Tony's just kind of not, it's taking him a while to finish his side, which pisses me off. It doesn't make me mad at him, but I'm just like, God, man, it's hard to collaborate with somebody because you can't really force creativity, and I love my side of it. The thing is like he had already written his portion of it before, but now we're trying to like blend our material together, and that's where it was at. Like I paid to have the cover made, And now he just basically was like, I'm still doing it. It's just taking longer than expected type stuff. So I'm not mad at him or whatever. It's just, again, it's like, these are two properties that I've been working on. Not really drug stories. That's old news. But Anti-Heroes, I was excited to get that out into the world. You know? I just want to get more writing out there. Because it's been a long time. It's been like 6 years since I've put anything out. You know? I'm like, people are starting to wonder if I'm a bitch. And my mom calls me. She's like, hey, are you a bitch? And I was like, am I? She's like, I think you are. I mean, you're only putting out one book every 6 years. That's fucking whack. You're a bitch. I was like, all right. Can I talk to Dad? She's like, he thinks you're a bitch too. I gotta go. Bye. Hangs up on me. I'm like, all right. I guess I am then. You know, so there's like all that kind of stuff. And then, my God, I'm not gonna bore you with like all the daily monotony of being in post-production in a film, which I'm trying to have done this month. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of pressure and it's a lot of egos. And, you know, like in a band, you're like dealing with like a small group, you're like with like 4 guys and you guys are in like orgies. And there's always like the drummer sticking his thumb up someone's ass. You're like, hey, come on, Mark. Come on, bro. He's like, what? I just want to rock, man. You're like, you've been warned about this kind of shit, Mark. We can't travel with you anymore. Everywhere you go, you're trying to stick your fucking fingers in people's assholes. Whoa. It's not fair, though, Ryan. You get to sing. Of course, in my delusions, I'm the singer. I'm the rock star, right? But when you're doing a film, you're dealing with like 30 people, if not more. So egos are definitely just like, there's like lots of different multicolored sperm, creative jizz, just, and then you just look like the prom scene in Carrie, soaked in blood, but it's creative jizz with like glitter. All right, this introduction's gone on for too long. So thank you for allowing me to vent. I do feel like I'm coming back, and take that for what it's worth. This is just what I'm doing right now. And then I want to make a more formal plan. But just chill, baby. Chill. Let me, let's just see where it takes me. I just, you know, at a certain point, I felt like I was, I don't know, like a mouse on like a hamster on a wheel. You know, I mean, I don't know. It's weird. I don't know how to, I'm not going to try to articulate. It doesn't really matter. Let's just say like certain content was bumming me the fuck out. It's just completely honest what was going on. I started getting weird and I just need I need to get away because certain stories like this storyline we're on, like I haven't thought about this shit for so long. I'm like having a fun time with it. I just had to get away from like the more traumatizing stuff. I want to call my mom and be like, hey mom, what's up? She's like, hey babe, how are you? And she's like, Wes Watson's up. And I'm just like, man, I'm so glad you're not saying that shit about me. She's like, no, I really love the Paul series. Okay. So here we are. We're back on this. But yeah, we will get further along in the different storylines. This is just, instead of me not doing anything, this is just me kind of like having fun and like getting my groove back. And if you understand that, cool. If not, so what? No, I hope you do. All right, let's get into it. Not really sure where we were at the end. I'm going to timestamp this. I swear I'm going to remember to do it. I always say that. I never do it. My hand's feeling better. Look, does it look better? It feels... Not wrapping it anymore. It just feels a lot better. So I think where we were last time, I had just started selling drugs. And I had started doing... Where we were last time is I'd gone to rehab. I'd gotten kicked out for for fucking Shannon in the shower. I'd come back to Santa Barbara. I'd moved in with my parents. I started dating Jenny. I started selling drugs. Going from like having no money to making like 10 grand a week. At age 21, 22. And not only that, on top of making, and you know, when I say 10 grand a week, that's what I mean consistently. I was guaranteed 10,000 a week at that time period. Like that's just how it worked out. That was like my profit. I made 10 G's a week, like 40,000 a month. But I did a lot of like side drug deals. You know, I'd sell 100 pounds here, sell 100 pounds there of like weed, maybe sell like a couple kilos of something and make like $20,000. Whatever I was doing, just these side deals. So I had more money than I knew what to do with at that time. And it was a very dramatic shift if you think about how I was living up until that point. I mean, I'd been homeless. I'd been out in Florida. The whole Mike Virgin thing had happened. I'd done a lot of jail time. I mean, what it felt like a lot of jail time at that period. And then all of a sudden I just had a lot of money. And then on top of having a lot of money, I was hanging out with a lot of other drug dealers that had a lot of money. So we were all just like, fuck it, we all have money. Let's go jet skiing. We were just like jet skiing, burning hundreds. No, we didn't do that. But we did have like private catered parties by like some of like the hotter DJs at the time. A lot of like electronic music, which I was never really into. I'm not really into it now. Probably more so than I ever was, because most women that I've dated, that's like what they're into. But it was just what seemed like the party was never really going to end. You know, just kind of had that feel to it, you know? And at a certain point, Paul had called me and asked me if I had the footage of him getting burned. Because he said that he had talked to this guy, Adam McGinnis, talked about him at the end of last video. And it's all coming back to me. And Adam was a content like acquisition producer for Spike TV. His purpose at the company, his role, was to find crazy footage. Like, hey Adam, can you find somebody that, I don't know, got lit on fire accidentally? It's like, I'm gonna go find that. And then I have no idea how he found Paul. Somehow he did. And this is for that program, Wildest Moments Caught on Tape. It used to be on Spike TV. And it would just show crazy shit that happened. It was kind of like ridiculousness before that was a thing. And that's what Adam went on to. He's one of the producers for that show. Like, if you look at the credits, his name's on there. His name's Adam McGinnis. And that guy really would become a pretty big figure in my life. But before I met him, Paul had called me and asked me if I had the footage. Now, remember, my parents had come up to Monterey. My dad's friend had found me in bed with like shit and piss, and let's not forget that there was cum as well, and Cookie Crisp, and the guy was horrified. And so my parents packed up all my stuff at the apartment. They put it into a storage locker, and I think they just paid for it to be stored there. It was like just my stuff, but there wasn't much. I had like Boogie Nights on VHS, Clockwork Orange on VHS. I had some peyote. That's about it. I think I had like a chair and maybe a mattress. I think my dad had bought me a mattress, the couch. I didn't have a lot of stuff. So this stuff just like stayed up there because I didn't need it, because I was like in rehabs and now I was living with my parents. We didn't need that stuff. But so when Paul had called me, I was making a lot of money selling drugs, and I was living with Jenny. We were living in motels, you know. She had moved out of her grandparents. I'd moved out of my parents. We were making enough money. We're just living the motel life, and any real drug addict has been there. You're living off 7-Eleven food. You know, your daily meals consist of like Slim Jims, Fun Dip, sodas from like fountain sodas, and like 7-Eleven hot dogs and pizzas. Your shit smells terrible. And it's just a lot of sex and drugs and junk food. And motel life. Usually like run into a tweaker at the ice machine and there's like some solidarity. You're like, hey. They like smile and they don't have teeth. You're like, I do math too. They're like, right on. I was like, how long you been doing it? A year. Like, you lose all your teeth in a year? Yeah. All right. Gonna leave that guy alone. And so that's what we were doing. And when that opportunity came up where Paul needed me to go retrieve this footage, because he had them on like those little mini DV tapes. And he said that I had the only existing footage. Like, I was the only person that had access to the footage because he had left it in my apartment when he ran off with that girl and went to Vegas. So a light bulb had gone off in my head that, you know, I should definitely go meet up with this guy in person. And the telemarketer that I called him. I was like, all right, yeah, Paul, give me his phone number. It's like, yeah, hey, Adam, this is Ryan Leone. I'm with, and I had to like think of what I thought would sound professional. You know, I wanted to sound like, well, I work for a production company. So I just made the name of one up. And I said, yeah, I work for a company called Twomp Productions. Now, in case you don't know, Twomp is a slang word for $20 worth of drugs. Like, let me get a twomp of crack. You know, like those shit that you'd say like on the street back in that time. Being in LA, you know, it's like, hey, I need some black. How much do you need? I need a twomp. You know, a dub is the same as a twomp. This is the first thing, like, that's my professional go-to, a 20 sack of drugs. I was like, yeah, I work for Twomp Productions. I mean, it kind of sounded mysterious, I guess, or it made me sound like a street-walking dick sucker. I don't know. It didn't seem to impress him. He was like, oh, that's cool. What's up with the footage? It's like, well, this is the thing, Adam. You know, the footage is, well, it's sensitive information, man. This is the only existing footage that we have of the incident, and I represent my client, Paul Harper. I was like saying things that I heard in like a Few Good Men, you know, like, well, Adam, you can't handle the truth. And he's like, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know, but we need to meet up in person so I can give you this footage. And he was like, okay. So I had to go up to like Northern California. I mean, I had so much money back then, it didn't matter. I think we rented a car or something. Somehow we got up there. I don't even remember. I think we had rented a car though. And we ended up getting the footage, and then we go down to LA. And I probably, you know, I want to say that I just lost my train of thought because a text message came through. I hate that. I tried to turn it off, put on airplane mode, I put on do not disturb, and the shit still comes through. What was I going to say? Oh, I think I'd covered some of this material in one of my earlier videos. Maybe Paul, because I know I'd gone into Cop Busters and that whole thing. So I'll just kind of go over like meeting Adam and how some of that stuff played out. And I'll continue to like the point of the story. So I retrieved the footage, and I planned on meeting Adam at a nightclub in LA. It was actually in Hollywood. It was called Lucky Strikes. It's a bowling alley / nightclub. Bizarre concept. And so I went down there with Jenny, and my friend Jesse was dating a girl named Kelsey. And she was a girl that we'd grown up with, and she was down there fucking Pauly Shore. My friend Jesse was dating her and knew that she was fucking Pauly Shore. And for some reason he was like okay with it. I'd be like, dude, what do you mean you take Kelsey over to Pauly Shore's house and let Pauly Shore fuck her? It's like, dude, he's legendary. He's talent. I'm like, I mean, I could see if it was like Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, Johnny Depp. But fucking Pauly Shore, like, it seems a little thirsty on your part. I'm just gonna be completely honest. She's like, he's all, yeah, she also fucked Turtle from Entourage and Luke Wilson. Which is all. I'm not just thinking of random people. That's exactly what went down. And they were living with this, this black guy named Dragon that had a Wu-Tang symbol, like, on his face. It was like a Wu-Tang birthmark. And I'd hung out down there, like, it was a very odd house. They lived in West LA, and they lived in this, like, very, man, it was like one of the most upscale condos I've ever seen in my life. It was like cube-shaped, and it was triple stacked with like this spiraling staircase that went in the center. Jesse Kelsey lived there, and they lived there with this dude, Dragon, with the Wu-Tang birthmark. He also had a Wu-Tang ring. And, you know, I went over there a few times, and you know, I talked to Dragon, who was one of the weirdest people I've ever met in my life. And he'd be like, yeah, man, have you ever heard of a musical group called the Wu-Tang Clan? I'm like staring at his Wu-Tang birthmark. I'm like, yeah. Yeah, what about Wu-Tang? Yeah, well, yeah, I write for the Wu-Tang Clan. I wrote, some of the biggest hits here. Have you heard of a song called Wu-Tang Clan Ain't Nothing to Fuck With? Of course I've heard that song. I wrote that shit. I was like, all right, well, why? That's cool. So you write music for Wu? Sort of like you in Wu's? Oh, no, I ain't in no musical group here, but I write for the Wu-Tang Clan. I was like, I mean, I don't mean offense by this, Dragon, but the Wu-Tang tattoo on your face would indicate to me that you're actually part of the Wu-Tang Clan. It's funny that you would mention that because I know Dave said the same shit, that it's loud, right? I was like, yeah, it's pretty loud. And he would just have these bizarre, like, so they were all addicted to coke. At this point, in case you're confused with like the chronology of what was happening, Jenny had figured out that I was a heroin addict. She was 5 years older than me, and she'd gone to high school in Santa Barbara. So I'm hanging out with all these guys that are like five, they're even older than her. I'm hanging out with like fucking 40-year-olds. I'm like 20. None of them have teeth. Some of them have Wu-Tang tattoos on their cheeks. No, that was just Dragon. But it was like these dirtbag older guys. And she'd like see him. She'd be like, oh, hey, Johnny. Hey, Charlie, the guy that told on me. He was one of the people I was hanging out with back then. I cannot believe that motherfucker sent me up. But anyway. God, I just can't believe it. So, like, she saw these older heroin addicts, and like one day she put it together. She's like, hey, Ryan, why do you only hang out with heroin addicts? I was like, I'm trying to get them help. She's like, do you do heroin? I was like, yes, I do. I'm sorry. She's like, do you have AIDS? I was like, that's the first thing that you trip on is that I might have AIDS? I was like, I don't know. I don't think so. She's like, oh my God, what do you mean you don't think so? Do you share needles? I was like, yeah. I was like, do you wear condoms? She's like, I'm a chick. I'm like, do you fuck guys without condoms? She's like, yes. I was like, well, just as guilty as me, bitch. Then she shut up. But so she knew that I was doing heroin, right? And her drug thing is she was epileptic. She smoked pot. But she also snorted blow a lot. You know, and she was bisexual. So a bisexual coke snorting person. No idea what her sexuality has to do with anything, but Felt like it might be a fun little trivia fact on top of it. So, that weird thing happened, which I found with a lot of women that don't do heroin, but do cocaine, which is common, especially in LA. Shit, everybody does cocaine. People are snorting blow in retirement homes. I'm getting like paranoid, thinking the caregivers are trying to kill them. It's probably not cool to laugh at your own jokes. I don't know, I thought that was kind of funny. All right, so that weird thing happened where like she was okay with drugs as long as it was like she was selectively like, okay, well, coke's cool, but heroin's not. And she tried to be on that high horse for a while, but like it's kind of hypocritical when you're smoking crack with me. You know, I right? Like, how are you going to say I can't do heroin when you're smoking crack cocaine? Doesn't make sense. So what would happen and what tends to happen in situations like that is eventually people bend their whole, moral code for you. So they just start doing a lot of drugs. And what always happens with me, with women, is they'll start dating me. And like maybe they like are party girls. They like to do a little yay like here and there. A little cocaine. And then they start, dating me and they're sticking lava lamps in their vaginas on webcams and shit and for crack, like within like a month. Basically what I'm saying is that my drug addiction makes women's drug addiction that I date much worse. And that's what happened to her. So at that time period, when we had gone down to LA to meet up with Adam McGinnis for the first time, her and I had been like really binging over coke. That seemed to be like a common pattern with me. I mean, I was only like 20 at the 20. No, I was 21. I was 21 at the time. I just turned 21 because I had just gone to Albuquerque. That whole thing had happened. And then Jenny and I had started dating right after that time period. And her and I would just have incredibly wild nights on coke, especially if you're with a bisexual girl, because, well, really anything can happen. And so we just had like a lot of very debaucherous nights. But that particular night that we went down there, we had already been up for, I think, like 3 days at Jesse, Kelsey, and Dragon's house. I'd brought some DMT with me. And I gave it to Dragon, the dude with the Wu-Tang birthmark. Probably in retrospect, not a good idea. It just seemed like a very dangerous person. I mean, generally people with half of their face tattoos aren't known for their like emotional stability, which is kind of one of the prerequisites for the most powerful hallucinogen known to man. You're not supposed to like, it's not like some shit that you just take lightly. Yeah, you smoke DMT, you're going to get transported into another universe. So what's going to happen? You're not going to be in the room anymore. You just get propelled into some weird seventh dimension where, you can hear echoes of every mistake you've ever made in your life. And there's like always naked angels that have like icicles coming off of their nipples, shit like that. Like really like full blown like apparition hallucinations. I love DMT. I've always had good experiences with it. I've seen people freak out. Jeff's freaked out on it. I like it. And back in that period, that's one drug that Jenny and I did all the time. All the time. Jeff, when we try to do that interview, and I'll try to get him on for a Patreon interview, he had talked about how when he lived with me at that house in Milpas, there's a lot of footage from that in the documentary. So like on some of the upper tiers, I put longer segments of the raw footage from the doc. That house that we lived at, Jeff would like just pick up scraps of drugs from the carpet. A lot of times he thought he was smoking crack and he was smoking DMT and he'd be like, no, and he'd just like get plunged back into some hellacious, would seem like a never-ending experience. It's only like 5 minutes. I've seen Jeff go out into that realm for like 15 minutes, but we give this guy Dragon a hit of DMT. Now we've already been doing coke at this big triple-story condo with Jesse, my friend Kelsey, fuck Pauly Shore, Luke Wilson, and Turtle from Entourage, and Dragon, the guy that claims that he wrote Wu-Tang Clan Ain't Nothing to Fuck With. Very deep song, very hard to write, I'm sure. It was just a weird combination of people. So we give him DMT. He totally wigs out, starts breaking shit at this place. So there were like these, I don't know how to describe, like a glass stool, I guess. And as soon as he took a hit, he went and got, like he had a Wu-Tang ring that he would wear. So like the W was like on the other side of his finger. He goes up to this glass stool and he just smashes his hand through it. Now he's bleeding everywhere. There's like blood like squirting out of his hand because he probably severed arteries and shit. And he's like trembling, you know, he's like not really making sense. You know, see that shit a lot with DMT. And he comes out and he's totally spooked. No violence. He's talking like he's from a third world country. I'm like, where the fuck did this come from? He's like, no violence. I was like, okay. He's like, here, take this. This comes from my room. And it was like this gold-plated AK-47 lamp that said happiness is a warm gun. And we ended up taking that with us. That was like in our car and shit. Like this big, like, gold-plated AK-47 lamp. And I actually looked it up. And you can probably, I'm sure somebody can find this if they Google it. Just exactly what I'm talking about. It's a gold-plated AK-47 lamp. And it says happiness is a warm gun. And it's a lamp. I think it was worth like $4,000 or something back then. It's from some like famous designer from Italy. And, yeah, it was weirdo shit, but he ended up, so he just had like this freak out. So just to give you an idea of like what it was like leading up to the night that I met Adam, we've been up for like 2 days. We've been smoking DMT with Dragon. It was just like a bunch of weird stuff. So we ended up going to this bar. Keanu Reeves was there that night bowling. He's like the nicest guy in the world. He's like, you know, like signing scarves for old women and shit. And we end up bowling with this obese black guy and this like very skinny Puerto Rican guy. And they're sniffly. And so we end up doing coke with these guys. They're gay. It's the weirdest couple. This black guy was like 400 pounds. Puerto Rican dude was one of those people. You ever meet those people that are just like oddly skinny? They look like a hammerhead shark or something. He just was like, it's like the kind of guy that could like fit through like a crack like that. Like that's how his like face, and just was the weirdest thing. Him and this black guy. Anyway, the black guy played, he was an actor, and he was the security guard in What's Up Rockers, which is a Larry Clark film. Same guy that made Bully that Nick was in, and he made Kids, which a lot of people have seen. And this black guy, I don't know, he had like a couple lines in the movie, and that was like his claim to fame. So that's what we're doing. We're like going in the bathroom, we're snorting coke with this black dude and this Puerto Rican guy, and we're just getting more and more coked out. By the time I meet Adam, I'm on one. I've already been up for a couple days, but now I'm snorting coke with these guys. And this isn't like Santa Barbara coke. This is like Hollywood, like gay people, probably cut with crystal meth coke. So I'm just like, you know, I'm just on one. I remember I got a Jack and Coke, and Adam comes in, you know, and he's like, yeah, I'll meet you at this spot. I was like, all right, cool. I go up to him, I was like, Adam, nice to meet you, you know, and I'm just, it's clear that I'm probably on crystal meth or cocaine. Now, it's fucking LA, I mean, he's used to it. And I was like, hey man, I have some ideas that I think could change your life. He's like, really? I was like, yeah. He's like what? I was like, I'll email you. Why don't you give me your contact information? He's like, here's my card. any ideas that you might have, you go ahead and you send to me. And I was like, so do we have a deal? He's like, what do you mean? Do we have a deal or not, Adam? I'm pretty sure that I've driven quite a long way for this. He's like, I don't know what you mean by that. I was like, I'm going to email you. I'm going to give you about 48 hours. You think about it. He's like, are you talking about the footage? I was like, I'm talking about the dreams that I had. Just making complete, being incoherent. So, this is how, like, delusional I am. He ends up leaving. I only met him for 5 minutes, maybe, at the most. And I go back and I'm like, in like, you know, the gay big black, I was like, did you close it? I was like, got his business card. And he's like, oh my God. He like hugs me. He's like, this is the best night ever. Do you guys want to come back to our apartment? I was like, no, dude, it hasn't been that fucking good of a night. And I was weirded out. And this guy was like, well, check it out. If you don't want to come back with us, you can stay with us. Because we were telling him that we wanted to move to LA. I mean, in my mind, this business card symbolized that I had like a deal. I didn't even have a fucking concept. I had nothing. I had nothing to tell. I didn't even, like, I was just on drugs. I was so naive that I thought because this guy gave me his business card and he was a producer for Spike, somehow that meant that that was good or something. But to me, I was just like, yeah, I won. I didn't even have any stakes to win. Just a weird time. So, right around that time, my friend Preston went to jail. And this is a kid that I'd known since I was in like 6th grade. Similar background to me. Only child, spoiled little brat. Got into drugs, you know, I don't know, in high school. And now he was a hardcore tweaker. You know, that was never really my thing, but, well, for a little bit. But that was like his thing, hardcore. Now, he didn't shoot it. He just smoked it, and he did weird shit, you know. He definitely was like always biting his lip. There was definitely always a chance you could get your wiener sucked, maybe. I don't know. He'd probably get mad if I said that. I don't know. I'm just joking about that. But he ended up going to jail. And Jenny and I had been living in motels. Now, around that time period, because he had gone to jail, his dad called me and said, hey, Preston's going to be locked up for like 90 days. Why don't you come move into my house? You and Jenny can pay rent. I said, yeah, absolutely. So we end up, you know, we don't want to be in motels anymore. We kept getting pulled over all the time. I was selling pounds of Molly, selling a bunch of heroin. It was obvious that someone had ratted me out. I don't know if I had ever told you guys this story, but this is a good little side one. Around that time period, it was like every time that we left this motel, we were getting pulled over. Not every time, but like 4 out of 6. Frequently enough where it was like super obvious that we'd been told on. So that's how it works. Santa Barbara is such a small place. They've known me because I've been getting in trouble there for like a long, long time anyway. But when somebody gets when someone gets busted, like it is anywhere, they'll tell on you. But the difference is in Santa Barbara, they'll just start fucking with you. They don't even like need a warrant. They'll just pull you over all the time. They'll search your car, whatever. They started doing this to us pretty frequently. I was driving my old 85 Volvo, and she had a black Jeep. Both of those cars seemed to be marked by the police. Like they had this, somebody had told on us, and they knew what vehicles we drove. So anyway, we were staying at this motel, and the problem with what we were doing is it was impossible not to move large quantities of drugs around. It was just impossible. Like, I'd get a pound of Molly, let's just say. Have a pound of Molly, and it would be in like a Ziploc bag. It was in powder form. It was white. It was like an oval white. oval. What am I trying to say? It was like an off-white, right? And it would be in a Ziploc bag. Pound is a lot. Pound is 16 ounces. So it's like one of those big freezer bags full of powder. And that powder is heavier than cocaine. So to transport it around was always a bit of a logistical nightmare for me. Because usually I'd be on point and I would take the necessary precautions to ensure that if I did accidentally get pulled over, they weren't going to find a pound of Molly, because I mean, you go to prison for like 10 years for that. The feds will crack you for that. They are really on it if you get caught with it. It's hard to get caught with because it's something that just isn't really on their radar as much. But when you do get caught, they break you off. And I didn't even know that then. I just knew that large quantities of drugs would lead to trouble. So what ended up happening is this one particular day, hold on, let me smoke real quick. This one particular day, it's probably like 2 p.m. And I don't remember what we were doing, but we had to go somewhere. We weren't quite living at Preston's dad's house yet, but that was like just about to happen. Like we were just making a transition. So I think that particular day I had to transport the weight somewhere. And I got in my Volvo. I was in my 85 Volvo. Jenny was in the front seat. I had the pound of the Molly in like a duffel bag, this red duffel bag in the trunk. And those 85 Volvos had these old school trunks where you had to manually unlock it with your key. You know, that was like the one good feature about it if you're selling drugs. But it doesn't matter, because if police pull you over, even if you're not on probation or parole, they were just so like thuggish in Santa Barbara. If they knew that you were a drug dealer, you were fucked. And it was obvious that I'd been told on. So we must have driven 3 or 4 blocks, if that. Cop car gets behind us, lights go on. Jenny starts freaking out. She's like, fuck. Because she knew that they were going to rip our car apart. They've been doing it every time they pulled us over. I was like, I got this. Don't even trip. I had no fear. I just kind of thought of what I was going to do. So, leave the key in the ignition. Cop comes up to the window. I roll it down. How you doing today, sir? He says to me. I was like, I'm doing fine. I'm going to have to take a look in your car. I said, yeah, that's no problem. You know, he's like, do you have your license and registration? Or first he asked for my license and registration, right? So I give him my driver's license. And that, you know, cops always pull the same fucking bullshit. They'll take your ID, they'll bring it to the car, then they'll come up with some bullshit excuse why they need to search it. Yeah, well, you're suspected for prostitution in Santa Ynez. And you're like, oh, yeah, that's a mistake, officer. Well, we're gonna have to search the car regardless. So once he went to go run my driver's license, I took the metallic key. You know, it's like this, you know, like thin key. I took it out of the ignition and I keistered it. I stuck the key up my ass. Jenny saw me doing it, but didn't say anything. She's just like, kind of like, okay, what the fuck? So now I just am sitting there with this key up my ass, sitting in the car. And cop's like, all right, we're going to search the car now. I was like, okay. I got out of the car and I went and I sat on the curb. Now, of course, another cop car pulls up. There's like 3 of them now. I know I'm cool. I'm not even tripping. I searched the car for probably like 20 minutes. Have their latex gloves on. They have their flashlights. They don't find anything. And of course, me, I always have a dirty car. So, you know, they're having a look through like old Wendy's French fry boxes, shit like that. Cop comes up and he's like, hey man, how do we get into the trunk? I was like, just use the key. He's like, oh, okay, cool. And he like goes to the front seat and he's like, hey, where is the key? I'm like, I don't know. In the front seat. Now he's like looking under the seat. He's like, no, I don't see a key, man. You sure you don't have it? I empty out my pockets. I'm like, I don't have the key. I was like, you guys were searching my car. You must have it. They're all kind of looking at each other like the Three Stooges. They're like, I don't have it. Do you have it? No, I don't have it. So this is when my acting comes in. I mean, she got an Academy Award for this. I actually get mad at them. I'm like, wait a second, man. This isn't cool. You pull me over for something that I clearly didn't do. I don't remember what their excuse was. I was joking about the prostitution thing in San Ynez, but it's like, you pull me over something that I clearly didn't do. You start searching my car. You lose my key. I'm late to go have dinner with my family, man. This is your responsibility. I start yelling at them, pointing at them and shit. I was like, this is your responsibility. I want my car towed, man. You got to tow my car up to my parents' house. The cops are kind of just like they don't really know what to do. They don't know what to make of it. I guess I was being pretty convincing. I mean, a lot of times I'd have to do stuff like that to survive. You know, if I'd gotten caught, I would have gone to prison right there and then, you know? So cops actually ended up towing my Volvo up to my parents' house. It was like so fucking triumphant because I'm just thinking like there's a pound of MDMA in my trunk and these cops are probably going to come out of their paychecks. They're having to tow my car. They had to, they had to use a tow service. They had to bring my car up to my parents' house. I remember my dad came out and he was just like, what's going on? I was like, man, they lost my key. These cops lost, can you believe it, Dad? These cops lost my key? My dad's like, kind of looking at me confused. The cops end up leaving and Jenny's just like laughing. She's like, you're out of control. She's like, that was crazy, and that was one of the better ways that I got out of that. So that's the kind of stuff that was going on at that time. I end up moving in with Preston's dad, and my cocaine addiction went from like, I think the fact that we were living in motels kind of kept us in line to some degree. Like, we did have to interact with people. I mean, that's one of the problems with living in motels. Like in Santa Barbara, there's not really weekly rates, so it's like the kind of thing where even if you're staying somewhere for an extended period of time, they generally don't let you have the same room, They, you're gonna have to deal with the people at the hotel at some point, I think that a lot of that is that they know that Santa Barbara is such an upscale place. The only people our age that are at hotels are smoking crack or doing meth or whatever, So we would kind of like get to a point where we'd almost have to control the coke use. And Jenny had kind of started sliding down the tubes on coke herself because we had so much money. That's where the money went. Coke and heroin. Like, it was almost like her cocaine addiction enabled my heroin addiction. So we were both kind of off like in our own directions, but I was shooting speedballs. But the fact that we had to deal with people that worked at motels, or we'd have to drive around, we couldn't really have, that's another thing, when you're selling drugs. So back then I was selling ounces of Molly. That was like what I was doing at that point. I'd sell ounces for like $1,500, $1,400, sometimes $1,600, $1,700, just depending on who it was. An ounce will get 280 capsules. You can sell the capsules for $20. And that's how people were making money. But you couldn't really have people coming to the hotel and having traffic like that. You just couldn't do it. It was the kind of thing where like the people that own the motel actually look for things like that. And this is true pretty much at any motel I've stayed at. You know, usually it's like a little Korean lady or something, and they're hip to the skit, man. You know, if you have people, a lot of times they won't even let you have guests. There's like signs, no guests. It's like they should just write, "Don't sell drugs here," because that's what they mean, or "Don't prostitute here." So, because of all this, it kept my cocaine addiction somewhat in line. I mean, I just couldn't completely just get weird and binge out. You know, there was like, we'd binge out, take some Xanax, pass out. You know, like there was like a certain amount of days that we could stay up without getting weird. Because after like day 4, that's not true. After about day 2, I'm fucked. I'm looking out peepholes, curtains. I get horny and I want to have sex, but I get horny and self-conscious at the same time. So like, I'll want to have sex, but I like will be too embarrassed to say it. And like, I don't have any, if I'm not on drugs, I have no problem being like, hey, let's fuck. Or just making moves or whatever. But I'd get like real awkward, like in my head. Just real weirdo shit, you know, eyebrow up, like just looking. Like she'd be like, are you cool? I'm like, I'm cool. What do you want to do? She'd be like, I don't know. Then we could watch TV. So in my mind, I'm like, she doesn't want to fuck. She must be attracted to other guys. Slut. And then I'll sit there and I'll just stew in it. And the stuff will start looping in my mind and I'll go crazy. And like, she's watching TV and it's literally like watching sand go down the little bottleneck of a hourglass. I can see each granule, but it's each second of not fucking and me getting paranoid that means that somehow she wants to suck someone else's dick. Then I'll just say it. I'll be like, whose dick do you want to suck? And she'll be like, what? You fucking heard me. Whose dick do you want to suck? And at this point, she'll start getting scared. Take a Xanax, you're crazy. And at that point, I usually do. Okay, so that's motel life. Take the Xanax, I wake up. Sleep is so healing when you're doing uppers. You have to have it. If you don't have sleep, it's where a large part of the problems come from. From crystal meth, from cocaine. Not getting sleep. Sleep deprivation fucks you up. When I had my breakdown, I think that's what the main problem was. So when we ended up going up to Preston's dad, like I'd known Preston's dad since we were, 12. I could do a whole series just on him. Just weird ass shit that happened with me and Preston and that whole family, and just crazy shit went down. When I moved in with him, I didn't have the accountability that I had, when I was in motels, the aforementioned reasons. I didn't have to, behave myself. I could get weird at Preston's dad's house. I could have people over. And so that's when like the cocaine just got out of control. And I was shooting it, I was smoking it, I was putting it in my coffee, I was doing speedballs, I was shooting heroin, and I started just getting very strange. I would shoot coke to the point that I thought I was going to die every time I did it. And I would hear demons going, rah! Like, it would sound like shrieks from hell. Hands just coming up, trying to snatch you down permanently. Like, you could feel that you were knocking on death's door. It was nuts. And I'd do this, like, close to death cocaine shot. And then I'd come back to reality, petrified. And then do it right over again. So I started going very, 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 very crazy pretty quickly. It's probably a good time to stop for the night. Maybe not for the night, but for this particular story. Karina's been complaining that, you know, I haven't been spending as much time with her and Nico lately. I've just been like so preoccupied with like different projects I'm doing and really trying to make sure that you guys are happy. I just thought that, like I said, instead of not doing anything at all, I would just do a series that didn't. It was like so long ago that it doesn't have like the same emotional wear that like some of the newer stories have, because those are still fresh wounds. So I hope you guys understand. Maybe when I call my mom, she won't call me a bitch. Palabra.